Hi folks, so I'm going to talk to you about resumes. You already have some material I have put together about how to construct a good resume. Now we're going to look at some samples, and I think that they are really useful models. That they're, first of all, they're actually pretty good resumes, but all of them offer me an opportunity to talk about a different principle that I think will help you write the best possible resume. So let me jump right in with this one. First of all, I do think it's appropriate to have your name a little bit larger. This one's 18 point, which is great, to everything else is 11 point. That's a pretty good difference. That way your name stands out. The placement of email and phone number is nice, but you definitely want to have your address as well. I'd also like to encourage you, if you're going to apply for a job somewhere else, to try somewhere other than where you live. Try to have an address, a local address, especially at lower levels of employment, entry level to your first maybe 5 to 10 years. You want to be as convenient as possible to the possible employer, and that means try to have a local address. So I'm not saying you should move, but like if you want to relocate to San Francisco and you're looking for a job from here, try to find someone in San Francisco who would let you use their address. And there are a number of different approaches to that, but please, it's like networking. Everybody is in your network. So your parents, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your parents' friends, aunts and uncles. Really think broadly. Anybody who, in fact, you might check with a professor and see if they know somebody who graduated from the program and is working out there, something like that. But try to get a local address. It will be helpful because if there's hassle around you moving and so forth, they'll be less likely to call you for an interview. Okay, so jumping right in, education is fine to put at the top when you're freshly graduated, but if you have significant work experience, I'd really encourage you to have your experience listed before your education. And that would be in most cases, but if you have an advanced degree, and the advanced degree is an important qualification, so if you wanted to be a librarian, your Master of Library Science is going to be at the top. It should be. Now, let's see, Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies, that's good, but I would encourage you to include the title of the program that you've constructed, because that should be a pretty interesting title. Dean's List is also awesome, but I would not list the dates at all. I would just delete those. You don't have to make them think about it. Possessive, so get that apostrophe in there. Now, GPA 4.0 is awesome. I'm not sure why that's there. And if it's unclear to me, it might be to other people as well. But and I'm sure there's a reason, but so your cumulative GPA, if it happens to be a 4.0, I would 100% include it on there. 3.8, 3.9, but otherwise, anytime you include a GPA, like 3.5 is very impressive, but if somebody else is applying and they're at a 3.6, immediately they look better than you, regardless of whatever else you've done, and so I would just leave that out, again, unless it's super high. And then expected graduation, delete that, okay, because you don't want to say or do anything to imply that you might or might not graduate. Just say when you'll graduate. And it's fine if it's in the future. Okay. The other thing, potentially, in order to really highlight the value of the education, would be to include specific projects that you've done, titles of papers that you've done. You can have a section titled relevant coursework or relevant research or something like that, to just delve into some specifics, because the concrete specifics that are different from what everybody else has done will be really beneficial for you. Okay, I like just the word experience. One of the things that does is it lets you include internships, volunteer work, any kind of experience that's that involved you working, whether you got paid or not, should all be in the same section. I'm kind of guessing these are summer jobs, but I don't know. But if they are, you would want to put summer 2014, because otherwise, maybe you work there for a week, maybe you work there for 11 months, 12 months. I don't know. And that raises questions for me. And it seems like you're maybe implying you did more. The other thing specifying something like summer does for you is it tells me you didn't get fired. That's not why you left. And then anytime you can really highlight anything you did that was beyond the ordinary. One of the problems I have with this right here is that this list is pretty much identical to this list. I think it is identical. And that might be fully accurate, but try to tell me what you did in the one place that was different. Try to tell me something you did that was above and beyond. Anytime you're handling money, balancing the cash drawer or resolving customer disputes, anything that really suggests higher levels of responsibility, that's awesome, and include that. Opening or closing a store, building a schedule, anything like that, try to include. And then if you're at Nike and one of your jobs was to build out a specific display that was very successful, any kinds of numbers, any sort of awards you got obviously would be awesome. And I know a lot of places are not very good about that. Amusingly, my own department just started a teaching award program like a year ago, which is nuts. So anyway, they're good to have. Try to include that stuff in there. Activities and clubs, that's good. When you were a member of this club, did you do anything? So tell me what kinds of presentations you went to, activities, anything like that. Camper doesn't sound very professional or serious, so I might say participant or whatever the leadership camp is. It means nothing to me unless you tell me what you're doing there, okay? And then really quickly, under computer skills, I would probably just put I always call that section additional skills. Microsoft Word and PowerPoint are good, but those are Microsoft Office applications. Assume that any given recruiter is a dumbass, and you will not be wrong most of the time. Some recruiters are fantastic, but a lot of them really aren't. So if the hiring manager tells them they have to have Office skills, Microsoft Office skills, the recruiter won't necessarily see that you have Word and PowerPoint and say, oh, that's Office, that's the same thing. Use the precise words in the application, and so, or pardon me, in the job listing. And so I would always say proficient in Microsoft Office applications, including Microsoft Word and PowerPoint. And I'm assuming this person has used Microsoft Excel, so please also list that. And then if there are specific skills within each application that you could do that are beyond the basics, animations, narration in PowerPoint, in Word or Excel, if you know how to do graphs and charts or macros or anything like that, indexing, include that so you really can give them more concrete information about what you can do. And then the other skills here, these are like super vague in general. I'm good at customer service. This doesn't tell me anything. Anybody can say that, and so I would probably just yank all that out of there because their eyes will go right past it. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. Now, if you've been recognized for any of those things, that would be different, but I would include, it's very important to include any kind of language skill you have. The particular phrasing I like is tell me what level of spoken and what level of written you have. So if I'm an advanced Spanish speaker with intermediate written Spanish skills, that's what I would include on there specifically. It's important to have both of those in there because a lot of people grow up with one or other of those languages in their home, but they only learn spoken. And spoken is still valuable, but your potential employer is going to want to know those kinds of details. In addition, if you indicate that you're fluent in a language other than English, always put down your level of skill with English. Indicate if English is your native language, indicate that it's your native language, but do include that in there, okay? All right, let's pop to the next one. I need to move faster. One thing I didn't explicitly say, 11 or 12 point is really your minimum size. If you're squeezing the font size down to try to get it onto one page, please don't do that. If you've actually ever held a job or she's got leadership and community engagement, it's absolutely fine to go to a second page. It's entirely appropriate to go to a second page. One thing that she doesn't have is that additional skills section. This stuff is super, super awesome and impressive, but the additional skills are missing. And if she dropped those out just because she was about to hit a second page, don't do that. Include that second page. I think that the other font looked better. This is Calibri. It's a little bit sort of cleaner and less busy looking than this, so that might be something to consider. Um, Let me see. I think there's too many lines going on here, so I would get rid of some of them, probably this big one at the top. Blah, blah, blah. So advocacy studies, that's great detail. Um, Minor GPA, okay, good. And then this kind of work experience. Now she dropped out, is this the same? She dropped out. She's got Nike and Nine West. I wouldn't necessarily drop stuff that quickly. It's an interesting whole long conversation of what you keep and how long you keep it for. But I have relevant work experience going back to right after I graduated from college, and if I were in the publishing industry, actually. So if I'm applying for something in the publishing industry, it's 30 years old, I'm still putting it on my resume, okay? If she's applying for something that isn't sales related, she doesn't need to have that on there, but this is a really short level of work experience, so I would be inclined to encourage her to put those back. This stuff is really awesome, very, very impressive. I would try to space it out just a little bit, give it a little bit of breathing room. This is amazing, amazing stuff. So highlight that. And then panelist is very, very, it's super repetitive. So I'm just going to say, yoink that, panelist, and then the date, and then we can get rid of the parentheses. The parentheses aren't really appropriate here anyway because the date is relevant. All this stuff is great experience. You guys, there are a lot of opportunities to do work, to be on committees, to be engaged in one way or another within the university. So I really, really encourage that because they're great additions to your resume. Okay, and let me pop over to, here's another one. Again, kind of a lot of lines, so I would try to limit those. This doesn't, the font, I would switch to the other one as well. So I wanted to talk about verbs a little bit with this one. Provide carriage tours does not sound very impressive. Because provide is just here's your thing, versus what she's actually doing is something that's very active, very engaged. So I would focus more on highlighting the educational role, background of the historic estate, and then here, utilizing in-depth equine knowledge to care for horses owned by the foundation is more impressive than care for horses, because oftentimes when people are skimming, they're only seeing the first bit. So, so go with that. I also wanted to emphasize, let me see, so assist with duties at the Richmond Battlefield Park sites. I might break out, each one of these is actually pretty impressive. Build trails, and it's current, so not so I would say building trails, build trails, clean out. Sounds like you're doing cleaning, and there's nothing wrong with cleaning, but what you're doing is eradicating invasive plants. Make it sound a little bit better, a stronger verb. Doing species surveys doesn't sound as good as surveying species, quantities, numbers, whatever, and then tell me which species, because here's where you can do some really good stuff with concrete detail. Which invasive plants, which native grasses, which trees. Interacting with visitors in the parks doesn't sound as impressive as providing information about wildlife in the parks to park visitors. So really try to make it as powerful as possible. She did a great job with getting some numbers in here, which is awesome. Definitely strongly encouraged. The collaboration is good. There's an opportunity here to tell me like specifically what survival skills and what arts and crafts. I would break those onto separate lines and give me some great detail, because part of what gets you into the interview is you just being interesting and sounding like someone they want to meet. And so tell me what those survival skills are. Tell me what the plants are. And tell me like what bodies of water are you canoeing, kayaking, and fishing on? Because any kind of detail like that is again, it's going to get you in that door that much faster. Okay, so to be continued.